Hello everyone. People all over the world, including myself, play video games on a daily basis. In today's world, video games are one of the most popular forms of entertainment. Whether it is on a computer, a game console, or even a cell phone, most people play some sort of video game on a daily basis. Today, I would like to discuss the early history of video games, the iconic 20th century gaming systems, and the modern day video gaming systems. Now that we have a grasp on the popularity of video games, let's start off by talking about the early history of video games. The entertainment industry was introduced to video games during the mid-20th century. The first Westinghouse display at the World's Fair in 1940 provided a game called Nim. Over 10,000 individual people actually played the game that year at the World's Fair. This simple computer game involved people trying to pick up a matchstick. The player actually lost 90% of the time to the computer-controlled opponent. In 1962, MIT student Steve Russell invented the game called Space War. Space War was the first computer-based video game ever. Two players would face off in a one-on-one battle in space with two spacecraft trying to blow each other up. The game was displayed on a converted oscilloscope and controlled via trackball. Now that we know how it all started, I'd like to continue on with some of the more popular systems introduced in the later part of the 20th century. The big boom in the video game industry all started in 1970s arcades with young kids. This era brought us the introduction to a game called Pong. Pong was created in 1972 by Nolan Bushnell and Al Alcorn of Atari. Based on the game of tennis, this is a one versus one player-based game. The very first Pong system in Sunnyvale, California actually broke during its test phases because it was played so much in the arcade. In the 1980s, we saw the emergence of Nintendo in the gaming industry. In 1981, Nintendo introduced a little Jumpman character in Donkey Kong called Mario. In 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System, also known as the NES. This sparked the United States video game revolution. In the year 1988, Nintendo provided the release of John Madden Football on the NES system. This was the first ever console-based football game. In the year 1989, Nintendo brought us the release of the handheld Game Boy. The Game Boy was bundled with a block building game called Tetris. Now that we covered a few of the most iconic gaming systems that started the video game craze, let's move on to some of the major systems of the modern day video gaming industry. The modern day gaming area is dominated by PlayStation and Xbox. Sony began production on the PlayStation in the year 1995. The first PlayStation was released later that year to the public. It was released to compete with the Nintendo 64 and the Sega Saturn. In the year 2000, PlayStation 2 debuted and dominated the console gaming world. In 2006, Sony released the PlayStation 3, and it held Sony's spot at the top of the market. In 2013, the PlayStation 4 was released, providing users the options for downloadable content and games on an online interface. The 2000s also brought about the emergence of Microsoft Xbox as Sony PlayStation's rival. The first Xbox was released in 2001 to compete directly with the PlayStation 2. In 2005, Microsoft released the Xbox 360, a high-definition multiplayer system. In 2013, Xbox One was released, providing users with downloadable content and live streaming video online. As you can see, the video game industry has gone through quite a big evolution over the past 75 years. There are several points that you should take away from what I have mentioned. First, the early systems gave the designers a cornerstone to begin their work for future systems. Second, the work on games and systems in the 1970s and 80s gave us iconic games and principles that the industry still runs on to this day. Finally, the new modern day systems provided a high-level, ever-changing technology to keep driving the industry forward. It really is amazing how much the video game industry has evolved since the small Nim display at the 1940 World's Fair.